Protecting America from a terror attack is the main job of Michael Chertoff, the Secretary of Homeland Security. Mr. Secretary, last week you described a gut feeling that you had that the United States was at an increased risk of a terror attack this summer. Does today's intelligence report confirm that gut feeling?
I think what I was describing and what this intelligence estimate confirms is a general sense that we're entering a period where we do have to be concerned about a heightened risk. Now, we're still, of course, better off than we were prior to 9/11, and there is a recognition that we've degraded the capabilities of Al-Qaeda, given where we were on 9/11. But also, we have to be concerned that they are beginning to regenerate and that they have found some kind of safe haven in certain parts of South Asia.
Doesn't that, what you just said, contradict, though, other U.S. intelligence analysis that basically say Al-Qaeda is as strong, if not stronger, than the organization was prior to September 11th?
I have to say, Katie, I haven't heard anybody, at least officially, get out and say that Al-Qaeda is stronger than it was prior to September 11th.
Or as strong?
I haven't seen that either. What I have seen is the statement that in the period since September 11, beginning when we degraded them by entering Afghanistan, they have regenerated, and they may be stronger now than they were, let's say, in 2002, when we originally rocked them with our assault in Afghanistan. But I haven't heard anybody in the community assess that they are where they were prior to the attacks on September 11th.
Do you believe an attack on the United States is imminent? And if so, Secretary Chertoff, will you raise the terror threat level in this country?
Katie, we don't have any specific information about or credible information about an imminent attack. Now, I want to remind you that we are at a very high level in aviation, which is orange, and we've been there since last August when we disrupted the airline plot in London. We're at yellow nationwide, and we've continued to increase our defensive capabilities so that what yellow is now is probably more robust than it was a couple of years ago. If and when we get specific threat information, we will then make the appropriate notification to the relevant authorities, and we'll also consider what we want to do with the threat level.
Do you have intelligence that Al-Qaeda has people in this country who are ready to attack at a moment's notice?
Well, we are monitoring at any given point in time with the FBI people who we believe are connected to Al-Qaeda, who are at a minimum potential facilitators, and people who could become operational. Again, no specific evidence that we're poised on the brink of an attack, but a recognition, as you see from time to time when cases become public, that there are people in the country who are at a minimum sympathizers, if not more, and who we have to keep a very close eye on.
But any indication, Secretary Chertoff, that the number of these said people have increased?
I don't know that I would say it's increased in terms of cells that we're monitoring in this country. I think one of the concerns I've expressed over the past several months is the growth of homegrown terrorism in Europe, and the concern that we have that we may be getting cells in Europe that could ultimately travel into the United States.
In fact, have you gleaned any helpful or useful information about the attacks in Glasgow and London that may help you predict what might happen in this country?
Well, we have, of course, very carefully monitored the investigations to see if there's anything that suggests a possible coordinated attack in the U.S., and we haven't seen any evidence of that. Of course, we track all the leads that we generate out of that investigation very, very aggressively. I think it is a good reminder, though, that one of the best weapons we have in defending ourselves is the observation of the ordinary citizen. You know, in London, it was the ambulance driver who saw something funny in an automobile who notified the police, and that, of course, gave rise to the discovery of one of the car bombs. So that is a very good lesson we take out of London.
What specific new action is being taken in the face of this heightened threat?
We're doing a lot of things, and it's not just something that we've done in the last few weeks. We're beginning, of course, outside the country with increased deployment of air marshals, more vigorous collection and analysis of intelligence, working with our foreign partners to get information. We're continuing to collect information on travelers from Europe and other parts of the world so we can identify people that we need to examine more closely. We've done more in terms of surging our security capabilities in the aviation sector. We've got more visible canine teams and other personnel, and some that are not visible in our airports and in our mass transit. So at every level, we are working to raise the level of security in the face of this risk environment.
What major metropolitan area, in your view, is most at risk? Would you say New York City is most at risk compared to other cities?
You know, I think we put New York and Washington still at the top of the risk pool, but there are other cities that have traditionally been focuses of threat. Los Angeles, Chicago. We've also seen threats in medium-sized cities. We saw a case involving potential threats to Miami and also activity in Atlanta as well. So while we put most of our emphasis on the big cities, the kind of big half-dozen cities, we also are mindful that sometimes we've seen pockets of sympathizers in medium cities or even small cities around the country.
We keep hearing that the border area, Pakistan and Afghanistan, is where al-Qaeda has reconstituted itself. If we have the knowledge about where they are, why isn't more being done to take them out?
Well, of course, I think as the president has said, we always reserve the right when we get specific, actionable, hard intelligence to take defensive action. But we're also dealing, obviously, with territory in a foreign country. It's gratifying to see that President Musharraf is, I think, stepping up the pace of his activity in that frontier area. And I think the whole issue of safe havens for al-Qaeda, whether it's in Pakistan or in Iraq or even someplace in East Africa, has got to be one of our principal concerns over the next couple of years.
Is he really stepping up the pace? And what more can be done to pressure his government to take more action against these people?
Well, as I think we saw with the recent activities involving a mosque in Pakistan, there has been some vigorous action that's taken. We recognize, of course, that all of South Asia is an environment where there is a fair amount of radicalization. We want to be supportive and cooperative with President Musharraf and other leaders in the South Asia area as they take steps to make sure that al-Qaeda and its sympathizers don't increase their safe haven and their span of control.
It's been about 6 years since the war on terror began. With the hundreds of billions of dollars that have spent and the thousands of lives lost, how is it possible that al-Qaeda has managed to rebuild itself to the degree it has?
Well, I think it's a recognition of the fact that just as we've devoted a lot of energy to increasing our defenses, they haven't been standing still. They've learned lessons, observing what we've done. They've lost a number of leaders. They've lost people like Hamza Rabia and Zarqawi and others, but they rebuild leaders. And as they continue to grow and they morph, they begin to stretch into places like Europe, North Africa, and East Africa. This is a dynamic situation. It's a long war, and it's one in which we can't afford to rest on our laurels, because I will tell you, the enemy is not resting on its laurels.
And finally, before you go, what is the latest intelligence on Osama bin Laden?
Well, obviously we're still looking for him. He's obviously hiding himself very well. While it would be a wonderful thing to be able to bring him to justice, we recognize that the danger here is not simply one individual, but it is a bench of individuals. And we have been quite successful over the past few years in taking out people like Hamza Rabia and Zarqawi. We're still looking for bin Laden and Zawahiri. And I'm confident that one day we'll be able to report that we have brought him to justice.
Do you believe that Osama bin Laden is still the operational leader of the al-Qaeda organization?
You know, I think he's always played a role in setting strategy and in improving some operations or approving some operations. But I think in terms of tactical day-to-day activity and planning, a lot of that has been taken a level or two below. People like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who we captured, people like Hamza Rabia, who we've eliminated. You know, that was a lot of the muscle and the planning, and to the extent we've taken them out, we've done a lot to help ourselves.
Michael Chertoff, thanks so much for your time.
Good to be on, Katie.